Day 4. This is Mondays. So I have to do 4, 5, 13, 16, 24, 29, 40, 35, 45, 48, and then I have one more day to go. So let's make this a little bigger. Yeah, let's just start. So let's start with 4 and 5. This is day 4. So 4 over here, I don't have distributive property to do, but I have combining like terms. So I can combine this guy with this guy. And if I rewrite it, I get that by putting like terms next to each other. And 3 minus 5, if you just think about it, 3 minus 5 is negative 2x minus 5 equals 3. Now I can make a story if I like. If I want to. My variable is x multiplied by negative 2 minus 5 equals 3. Going backwards, that will tell me what inverse operations to do. So the first thing I will do is plus 5 on both sides and then divide both sides by negative 2, and that should give me an answer. This one is easier to do. 3 plus 5 is 8, and divided by negative 2 is negative 4, because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Let's see how this looks like. So I have to do plus 5 on both sides. These two will go out. I'm left with negative 2x. 3 plus 5 is 8. And then I'm told to divide both sides by negative 2. And you can see it makes sense. Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. Cross the negative 2's out because it becomes positive 1. And positive 1 times x is x. And 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. So you can tell I get the same answer that I got when I was doing my story. Substitute. So in place of the x, and I'm going to erase everything here. So in place of the x, I'm going to put negative 4 minus 5 times negative 4 again equals 3. So all that should equal 3. This is negative 12. Minus 5 is just going to do nothing. And negative 5 times negative 4 is positive 20. And that should equal 3. Negative 12 and negative 5 is the same thing as negative 12 plus negative 5, which gives me negative 3. Plus 20 equals to 3, and you can clearly tell that 20, or negative 3 plus 20, is exactly, no, oh, here is my mistake. Negative 12 and negative 5 is negative 17. There's more positives, there's 3 more. So my answer is 3, and my left side equals my right side. I'm way too happy for Saturday morning. Number 5. Again, we can combine these like terms, negative 7, negative 1x, and negative 7, right? So it's a negative. So if you think about it without the variables, it's negative 1 minus negative 7, and you get negative 1 plus negative 7. That should give us negative 8, right? So this is going to be negative 8x equals 8. You can make a story if you like, but I don't think you need it. So the only thing we have to do is divide both sides by negative 8. Oops. Here we go. Divide this by, why am I, you know what, I'm making this ugly. So here's our equation. Divide this by negative 8, and divide this by negative 8. Each side gets divided by negative 8. Negatives become positive, and I get x, and 8 divided by negative 8 is negative 1. Substitute, I got negative, like this. I have to replace the x with that. Minus 7 times, again, negative 1 equals 8. Now, if I were to do this, a negative and a negative gives me positive, so negative and negative 1 gives me positive 1, or just 1. Negative 7 times negative 1 becomes positive 8, but positive 7 equals 8, and 1 plus 7 equals 8, which equals the 8 on the other side. 13. I have variables on both sides. I don't have distributive property. I don't have combined like terms, so I can go straight to getting rid of one of the x's. So let me just put a 1 here. So let's get rid of that 1x, or if you want to, you can get rid of the negative 6x on this side. And if I want to get rid of the negative 1x, I'm going to do plus 1x, and I'm going to do plus 1x on this side. These two go out. I'm left with negative 6. Negative 6x plus 1x is negative 5x plus 2. Uh-oh. And I did this wrong again. So Did I say it was too early? There is no distributive property, but there is combined like terms. These two I can combine because they're the same. And again, I get negative 4x equals negative 6 minus x. Now I can get rid of this 1x over here, right? Because I combine like terms, so follow your order. And in order to do that, I'm going to add 1x on this side. So if you want to draw that line and add 1x on that side, negative 1x and plus 1x goes out. Negative 6 is left over on this side, and negative 4 plus 1x is negative 3x. Now I can divide both sides by 3, so it's divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. These two negatives become positives. And likewise here, 6 divided by 3 just gives me a positive 2. So substitute, I get negative 6 times 2, right? I'm replacing the 2, plus 2 times 2 equals negative 6 minus 2. So that's my equation with x substituted. So negative 6 and 2 is negative 12. These are two positives, so 2 times 2 is just 4. On this side, negative 6 and negative 8 is negative 6 and negative 2 is negative 8. And I did something wrong already. No, I didn't. Negative 12 plus 4, there's more negatives, right? Because the absolute value of that. So we take the sign of the bigger absolute value, which is negative. So my answer is going to be negative, and there's more negatives. How many more negatives? 8 more, and that equals my negative 8 on the other side. Okay, not that bad. 16. No distributive property, no combined like terms, and a variable on each side. So let's get rid of our variables, one of the variables. So let's get rid of this guy, minus x, minus x. 1 comes down, 3 minus x is positive 2x, right? There's a 1 here, 3 minus 1 is 2x. On this side, these two x's go out, and I'm left with negative 5. Now I can make a story. I have a variable x, it's multiplied by 2, plus 1 gives me negative 5. And the inverse operations I will do is minus 1 on both sides, and then divide by 2 on both sides. So let's do that. First thing, minus 1. Minus 1, these two go out, 2x comes down, negative 5 minus negative 1 is negative 6, divide both, so that's a check, and now I divide both sides by 2, and x equals negative 3, because a negative divided by positive is a negative. Let's make sure it works out. So it's 1 plus 3 times negative 2, that should equal negative 5 plus negative 3. Right? I replace the x with negative 3. So over here, 1 stays. That's a positive times a negative. Remember, this is multiplication, so I get negative 6. On this side, negative 5 plus negative 3 is negative. Oh my God, looks like it's wrong. What did I do? Negative 5 plus negative 3 is negative 8. And there's something wrong over here. What did I do wrong? Because it's going to be negative 5 equals negative 8. So clearly, I am not doing this right. So let's do it again. Obviously, this is all wrong. Let me not erase that. Let me just erase this. So what did I do wrong? I subtracted x from each side. Negative 5, 2, minus 1, minus 1. I don't know what I did wrong. Negative 3. Oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I just don't know how to substitute. So it's 1 plus 3 times negative 3 equals negative 5 plus negative 3. Let's do the easy side first. So this is 2 negatives, right, being added. So my answer is going to be negative, and 5 plus 3 is 8. Done. On this side, 1. Before I write the sign, let me figure out what the sign is. So it's a positive times a negative, which is going to give me a negative. 3 times 3 is 9. So it's going to give me 1 minus 9. 1 minus 9 is the same thing as 1 plus negative 9. If you'd like to rewrite it, you can. And 1 plus negative 9 is negative 8, which equals negative 8 on the other side. So my check was horrible. 16, 29, 24, 25, 29. Distributive property, yes there is, so let's take care of that. So here's the 88. Negative times a negative is a positive. I get 24. And negative times a negative again is a positive. And 4 times 8 is 32x. My little story, if you so choose to do it. I have a variable x, which would be multiplied by 32, add 24, gives me 88. Going backwards, I'm going to do minus 24 on both sides, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 32. So let's do that. First thing is minus 24. Minus 24 here, minus 24 here. These two go bye-bye. 32x comes down. And 8 minus 4 is 4. 8 minus 2 is 6. Check. Divide both sides by 32. And I get that x is 2. Alright, that was nice and easy. Substitution. 88 equals negative 4, parentheses negative 6, minus 8 times 2. Let's see if that really works out to 88. So let's wait on the negative 4. Let's not do the distributive property. Let's take care of the inside. Inside says the multiplication first, right? So negative 6 is going to just hang out a little bit. And negative times a positive is a negative, and 8 times 2 is 16. Continuing. Inside the parentheses, negative 6 and negative 16 is the same thing as negative 22, right? Because it's negative 6 plus negative 16. Two negatives I add, they're friends, right? So it's negative 22. And positive, negative times a positive, negative times a negative is a positive, and 4 times 22 is 88. Done. 29, 24. Again, no yes, there is distributive property. What am I talking about? Negative 81, negative 1. Negative times a positive is a negative. Negative times a positive is again a negative. Okay, so distributive property, check. Combine like terms. Yes, there is. I can combine the negative 1, negative 16. So negative 81. Let me rewrite this. You don't have to rewrite it if you can do it in your head. So rewritten, I put the like terms next to each other. Negative 81 equals negative 1, negative 16 is negative 17 minus 8x. Now I can combine like terms is done. I have no variables on both sides, so that is gone. So now I can do my story. I have a variable x, which is being multiplied by negative 8, and then minus 17, and that all gives us negative 81. Going backwards, the inverse operation I'm going to do is plus 17, and then divide by 8 on both sides. So let's do that. Here's my line in the middle. Here's my line in the middle. First thing I do is plus 17. Plus 17, plus 17. These two cross out, become 0. Negative 8x comes down. Negative 81 plus 17, negative 81 plus 17. There's more negatives, so my answer is going to be negative. So I have to subtract, find the difference between these two. 81 minus 7 is 4, and 7 minus 1 is 6. So that's going to become negative 64. Check. Next thing is divide by negative 8. Sorry, I should have written it. Divide by negative 8. Divide by negative 8. Negative 8 divided by negative 8 leaves me with just x. And negative divided by negative is a positive, and 64 divided by 8 is just 8. So x equals 8. So substitution, negative 81 equals negative 1 minus 8. And in place of the x, I'm going to put 8 plus 2. This becomes an order of operation problem. Negative 1, and then negative times the negative is... No, not doing this tree property. What am I doing? Sorry. Let me just... And then let me do this. 8 plus 2 is 10. Okay. Negative 81 equals negative 1, and negative 8 times 10 is negative 80. And now we can clearly see that they are going to be equal to each other. Okay. 24 gone. 35. Please tell me this is being recorded. Yes, it is. 35, 35, 35. 35 has a little bit of everything. Distributed property. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24b. And they're all positive, so I don't have to really worry about the sign. Equals 40 plus 8b. Distributed property, check. Combine like terms, check, because I can't combine these two, nor I can combine these two. Get rid of a variable if they're one on each side. So there's a variable here. There's a variable here. Let's get rid of the 8b. To get rid of the 8b, I'm going to subtract 8b. And likewise, I'm going to subtract 8b on that side. So let's do that. These two go 0. 40 comes down. 8 comes down. And then positive 24 minus 8b is just 24 minus 8, which is positive 16b. Little story, if you like. B is my variable. I'm multiplying by 16, and then I'm adding 8. That's going to give me 40. Going backwards, I'm going to subtract 8 and then divide by 16. So let's see what that looks like. So minus 8 here, therefore minus 8 on this side. These two go out. 16b comes down. 40 minus 8 is just simply 32. Check. Divide both sides by 16. And I get that b equals 2. 32 divided by 16 is 2. So substitution. So wherever I see the b, I'm going to put a 2. So it's going to be 8. 1 plus 3 times 2 equals 40 plus 8 times 2. Inside the parentheses, so let me hang out. The 8 is going to just hang outside for a second. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So that's what I have left over. On that side, 40 plus 40, positive and a positive, is going to give me plus 16. So they both should equal 16. 56. 40 plus 16 is 56. 8 times 7 is 56. So my solvent check is correct. What was that? 35? 40, I think. 40. Distributed property first. Negative 28 plus 7a equals negative and a positive is a negative 56. Negative and a positive is negative again. That's give me negative 7a. Distributed property check. Can I combine like terms? No. Is there a variable on each side? Yeah. So let me get rid of one of the variables. Doesn't matter which one. So let's get rid of the variable on this side. Okay. So it's minus 7a. To get rid of that, I'll do plus 7a. And I'll do plus 7a on this side. Minus 28 comes down. 7a plus 7a is plus 14a equals negative 56. And this goes out. I have a variable a, which is being multiplied by 14. Subtract 28, and then that gives me negative 56. Going backwards, I do plus 28 on both sides, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 14. So first thing, plus 28. Plus 28 over here, plus 28 over here. Negative 28 plus 28 is 0. 14a comes down. Negative 56 plus 28, there's more negative, so it's going to be negative answer. And how many more negative? There's 28 more negative. Check, divide by 14 on both sides. A equals a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 28 divided by 14 is just simply 2. So my answer is negative 2. Do my check. Negative 28 plus 7 times negative 2. I'll put this in parentheses. Equals negative 7, and then 8 plus negative 2. So over here I have negative 28. And then it's a positive times a negative, which gives me negative, and 7 times 2 is 14. Let me just take care of this. Negative 28 and negative 24, you can rewrite it as this if you like. And negative 28 plus negative 14 is negative 42. Both negatives, right? On the right side, negative 7, let's do it inside the parentheses. 8 plus negative 2 is going to be 6. And then negative times a positive 6 is going to be negative 42. And you can tell they're both equal. So I'm not doing that bad. And 39. 39. Why am I doing 39? No, it's 40. Okay. 40. We're doing 45 next. Yikes. And then 48. 45 is a little long. Okay, so distributive property first. Negative 2 minus 5b plus 1 plus, plus 8b. You could have combined like terms. I don't know, for some reason didn't. So let's do the distributive property on the right side. Negative 8, negative 3 is 24. Positive. Negative 8 and negative 6 is positive 48b. And then negative 5 times positive 40 is negative 40. And negative 5 times positive 6 is negative 30b. Now I have a bunch of things I want to combine. Let me just charge my computer. So you can start combining if you like. Hopefully you have this done actually. So on the left side, we can combine a whole bunch of things. And I will actually rewrite them so the like terms are next to each other. So negative 2 plus 1 minus 5b plus 8b. I can combine, and then let me organize this right side. So it's 24 minus 40, and then the b's next to each other. So it's a positive 48b minus 30b. So combine like terms, negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Negative 5b plus 8b is positive 3b. 24 minus 40 is the same thing as 24 plus negative 40. There's more negatives, so it's going to be negative 16. And positive 48 minus 30b is just 48 minus 30, which is positive 18b. So you can see our equations getting smaller and smaller. So we did distributive property, we combine like terms. Now we're going to check if there's a variable on both sides, and there is. So let's get rid of one of them. And let's get rid of the 3b. So minus 3b on this side, minus 3b on this side. So I'll draw a line here. So positive 3b and minus 3b become 0. So all I have left over is minus 1 on that side. Negative 16 does nothing, so it comes down. And 18, positive 18 minus 3, so 18 minus 3 is just 15, so positive 15b. Now this becomes a two-step equation. You can write a little story if you like. I have a variable b, which is being multiplied by 15, then minus 16 equals negative 1. Going backwards, I will use plus 16 on both sides first, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 15. Let's see what that looks like. Left side, my dividing, so plus 16 here, plus 16 here. These two go out. I have 15b left over on this side, and positive 16 minus 1, or negative 1 plus 16 gives me 15. Check. Both sides now are divided by 15. And I know that b equals 1. Wow! And our check is going to be a little long, but okay. So b equals 1, remember that number, or I should remember that number. So every time or everywhere I see a b, I'm going to replace it with 1. Ugh. 5 times 1 plus 8 times b. Now, I'll make a comment here. I'll make a comment after I do this. That we could have used another equation to check. And I'll talk about that in a second. Plus 6 times 1. So I think I substituted those minds correctly. So order of operations. First thing I do is multiply these two. Negative times a positive is a negative 5. Plus 1 plus, and this shouldn't be a b, should be 1, right? Should be 1. So 8 times 1 is 9, positive, by the way. Let me just continue. Negative 2 and negative 5 is the same thing as negative 2 plus negative 5. Negative 2 plus negative 5 is negative 7 plus 1 plus 9. Negative 7 plus 1 is negative 6. And then plus 9 is going to give us negative 3. So all this side equals, not negative 3, but positive 3, sorry. On this side, I have negative 8, and inside the parentheses, I have a negative here, times a positive, so that gives me negative 6, right? So I have negative 3 and minus 6, going to give me negative 9. And then minus, let me change colors, minus 5. Let me erase this. Minus 5, and inside the parentheses I have 6 times 1, which is 6, plus 8 is 14. So I get 14 here. But this whole parenthesis equals 14. Negative 8 and negative 9 is positive 72. And then negative 5 times 14 is going to be negative something. No idea what this is. 5 times 4 is 20. This is wrong. Oh, this is supposed to be an 8. This is supposed to be an 8. This is supposed to be an 8. And that gives us 2. Sorry. And 5 times 14 is 70. And 72 minus 70 is just 2, which equals 2 on the other side. So the comment I wanted to make was that when you substitute, let me go back, a lot back. Hopefully that allows me to go back. You can substitute, I don't know if that's right, but you can, I could have, go back, substituted even here in this equation. Notice that these are equivalent equations, right? This is the same thing as this, and that's the same thing as this, only a simplified version, and that equation is the same thing as this equation, only simplified, right? So you could theoretically do your check here in this equation, which is much smaller. But the problem is that if you took these steps and you got the wrong equation, your check obviously is not going to work, right? So if you went from here to here and you combined the like terms and you got you combined incorrectly, or you applied the distributive property incorrectly, you're going to have not an equivalent equation, right? So the two equations are not going to be similar. Or even here, it's much easier to check in this at this stage, but if your steps to get to here are incorrect, then your check is going to be incorrect. Okay? I don't know if that made any sense. 48. Okay, thank God 48 is not that big. So these are all positives, makes life much easier. So it's going to be 64 plus 56x, and then minus 2x. On the other side, everything's positive again, so it's just going to be 5 times 4 is 20x, and 5 times 6 is 30, much easier. Distributive property check, combining like terms, getting to it, so I get 64, I can't combine, but I can combine these two. That gives me positive 54x. Equals 20x plus 30. I can't combine those two. There are variables on both sides, so that's check. So let's take care of a variable. Let's get rid of the 20x, minus 20x. That side, and minus 20x on this side. These two go out. 30 comes down. 64 also comes down. And 54 minus 20 is just simply positive 34x. Story? Here's a variable times 34 plus 64 equals 30. Or inverse operations, I'm going to do minus 64, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 34. So first thing, minus 64 on this side, minus 64 on this side. These two are out. I get 34x, and then 30 minus 64 is the same thing if you want to rewrite it as 30 plus negative 64. There are more negatives, so my answer is going to be negative, and then 30 minus 64 is going to be negative 34. Divide both sides, right? Now we divide both sides by 34. That's easy enough. 34 divided by 34 is 1, and then I get x left over, and negative 34 divided by positive 34 is negative 1. So my answer is negative 1. Substitution, 8. 8 plus 7 times negative 1. Okay. Minus 2 times negative 1 equals 5, and then 4 times negative 1 plus 6. Order of operation tells me I have to do the parentheses first, so this 8 is going to wait a little bit. So I got 8, and then positive times a negative is a negative, and 7 times 1 is 7. I can do these two. 2 times negative 1 is plus 2. Oops. On this side, 5 is just going to wait a little bit, and inside I have 4 times negative 1, so positive times a negative gives me negative 4, and then plus 6. Let's do this side because it's easier. So it's 5, negative 4 plus 6 is 2, and 5 times 2 is 10. Done. On this side, I got 8. 8 minus 7 is 1, and then plus 2. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Both sides check out. And that's day 4.